Hi everyone. You should be on Factoring Linear Expressions. It's EE3 in your binder. Now, when we begin talking about factoring expressions, the first thing we need to know is what is a factor. And a factor is a number being multiplied. So that when I take two numbers and I multiply them together, those numbers are called factors. Now, you have worked with greatest common factor before, and at this point you should be able to look at numbers and decide what is the greatest common factor. So let's look at number 1. I have the numbers 4, 12, and 16. So I need to find the biggest number that when I multiply it by something else will give me 4, 12, and 16. Well, the greatest common factor of those three numbers is 4. 4 times 1 is 4. 4 times 3 is 12. 4 times 4 is 16. On number 2, I have the numbers 12, 18, and 9. Well, I know that the greatest number that will divide into those three is 3. 3 times 4 is 12. 3 times 6 is 18. 3 times 3 is 9. When I look at 22, 8, and 28, the greatest common factor is 2. 2 times 11, 2 times 4, 2 times 14. And then finally, when I look at 56, 16, and 24, I know that the greatest common factor is 8. 8 times 7, 8 times 2, 8 times 3. Now, I did that pretty quickly because you should already know how to find greatest common factor. When we factor in math, we are finding the actual factors of an expression. That is, we are looking for what was multiplied. Thus, we are undistributing. So when I factor, instead of using the distributive property to simplify an expression, I'm going to undistribute that expression and show what it looked like before I multiplied those numbers. So let's take a look at the first example, 6x plus 10. What I want to do is I want to find a number that when I multiply it by another number will give me 6 and will give me 10. Well, that number is going to be 2. 2 times 3x will give me 6x. 2 times 5 will give me 10. So what I'm doing is I'm looking for the greatest common factor of the expression. When I look at number 2, I want to look at a number that's being multiplied by both of those to get -4 and to get -10. So I know that I'm going to factor out a -2. -2 times +2 is -4. And notice that's a plus sign. That's why I know that I have to factor a negative. And then 5 times -2 is -10. So my factored expression, -2 times 2x plus 5. So then on number 3, I need to find what is... He's not here today. Okay, so on number 3, I need to find a factor of 2 and 8. Well, that's going to be 2. So what I'm going to do is I need parentheses. So I'm going to factor out the 2. So 2 divided by 2 is 1, so this will be x. And then 8 divided by 2 is 4. So I am undoing, I'm undistributing. 2 times x is 2x. 2 times 4 is 8. And that gives me 2x minus 8. On number 4, as I look at these two numbers, I am going to factor a 2. So again, I'm going to write it now in that distributive property form. 8x, because 2 times 8 is 16, plus 11, because 2 times 11 is 22. That's all it is to factoring. You're just undistributing. Now, A rectangle has an area of 4x plus 6. If the width is 2, what is the length? Well, this is nothing more than a factoring problem, and I'm already telling you to factor out a 2. And remember, to find the area of a rectangle, it's length times width. So if I know that my width is 2, well, 2 times 2 is 4, plus 2 times 3 is 6. So there is my expression factored. A rectangle has an area of 9x minus 12. If the width is 3x minus 4, what is the length? Well, this time I just want to know, what did I multiply by 3 and 4 to get 9 and 12? Well, my length is equal to 3, because 3 times 3 is 9, and 3 times 4 is 12. Okay, let's flip over to the back. Now, sometimes when you have an expression, that expression might not be able to be factored. So if it can't be factored, we're just going to say it can't be factored. But let's look at number 1. Well, I have a 15 and a 10, and I know that I can divide 5 into both of those. So I'm going to factor out a 5. I know that 3 times 5 is 15. 2 times 5 is 10. Let's look at number 2 a second. There is no common factor between 7 and 3 except for 1. So in this case, cannot be factored. And you can just go ahead and abbreviate it. Now, make sure you check for factors, because you shouldn't have a whole lot of can't be factors. Number 3. I have a 6 and a 9. I know that that greatest common factor is 3. 2x plus 3. 3 times 2 is 6. 3 times 3 is 9. Number 4. I have a 30 and a 25. So I can factor out a 5. 6x minus 5. 5 times 6 is 30. 5 times 5 is 25. On number 5, notice my numbers are 13 and 14. Well, there is no common factor except 1, so good old CBF cannot be factored. On number 6, now be careful, because yes, I could take out a 5, but I can also, remember, I want the greatest common factor. Well, the greatest common factor of these two numbers is 25, because 2 times 25 is 50, and 3 times 25 is 75. On number 7, again, I could factor out a 2, I could factor out a 3, but I could also factor out a 6, and that's my greatest common factor. 6 times 4 is 24. 6 times 3 is 18. On number 8, I've got a 13 and an 18. Only factor they have in common is 1, so it cannot be factored. On number 9, I have a 16 and a 12. 4. 4x minus 3. 4 times 4 is 16. 4 times 3 is 12. And then finally on number 10, I can factor a 9. 4 times 9 is 36. 5 times 9 is 45. And that's all there is to factoring. Just find the greatest common factor. Now, you have two word problems here. A square picture frame has a perimeter of 20x plus 32 inches. What is the length of one side? Well, remember that a square has 4 sides, and they're 4 equal sides. So I'm going to factor a 4. 4 times 5 is 20. And 4 times 8 is 32. So that when I factor that, 4 times 5, 20, 4 times 8, 32. So 4 times the quantity 5x plus 8. And then on number 12, I have a rectangle. Total area is 4x plus 36, and I want to factor 4x plus 36. So what I'm looking for is kind of like the length and the width. I already know that this is my total area. So to find the actual length and width, I want to factor. Well, I know that 4 is my greatest common factor. I know that 4 times 1 is 4, and 4 times 9 is 36. So that my length and my width of this rectangle is 4 and x plus 9. If you have any questions, bring them to class tomorrow.